Okay, next we're going to have Dr. Zenaida Ganga, from research scientist at Cavendish Farms. Zenaida has been doing research on wireworms for a few years now. I was thinking when I was sitting down there that, really there's nobody doing, Christine's not even doing wireworm research full-time on PEI. I know Zenaida's got a whole whack of stuff in her portfolio that she's doing. So we really don't have anybody full-time doing wireworm research. They're all doing this work in cooperation with some of their other studies. So we're very happy and pleased to have Zenaida come and give us some more information. Are you going to stay?
I'll just stand here. Thank you, Brian. I was talking to Joanne a while ago, and I was saying, there's so many informations we've learned today, and we have the two veteran wireworm expert speakers. I first heard wireworm way back in 1980s when I was working on sweet potato, and after that I haven't heard about wireworm until I came to PEI. And actually, I heard wireworm from Christine's presentation in 2010. I think during the Potato Expo, you presented the results of your, was it the first or second survey? Anyways, I'm a rookie here compared to Bob and Christine. But anyway, as you have heard earlier, Cavendish Farms is committed to giving a solution to this very important problem. And as mentioned by Shauna, Cavendish Farms is a contributor to the big wireworm program, financially that is. And in addition to that, from our regular budget, the research division is also conducting some studies. And I would like to highlight the word on-farm words there, because we're doing more of a verification trial, more of adaptation trial, looking at available technologies and working with the grower like Hans. I'm going to talk more about his participation here, but yeah, this is more about an on-farm trial. And in an on-farm trials, sometimes you have to adjust your schedule or adjust your methodology based on the grower's regular activities. That's the reality. But we're getting good results here. So that's the case. This is a team effort. I would like to recognize William and Jesse's contribution here. I'm just reporting here in behalf of the group. As I've mentioned, we are working with a grower, with Hans, who has been a very good collaborator for the last 3 years. And also we collaborate with Christine. And one of the trials that we conducted is actually in a partnership with Dr. Vernon here that will be on with treated seeds. And we have support from the PEI Potato Board and the PEI Duck Council. I really appreciate Ryan and Mary Kay coordinating all these activities on wireworm. So for the last 3 years, we have conducted these studies on wheat-treated seeds using the insecticide blend that Bob mentioned earlier in his presentation. We look at mustard and buckwheat as rotation crops, green manure crops. This came from Christine's report too. She reported of the good effect of these two crops, so we look at that. And also at the time, we were open to anything. And Steve Watts came to us when he was still with a private company and offered us to look at Dazitol. We also included another product. This is Must-Grow. This is actually a mustard meal that we saw, because the question was, if mustard can control wireworm, why don't we get, isolate the active there and use it apply it to the potato plant. So I saw one paper presented and one article from the West, actually in Washington, where this grower used this Must-Grow. And so I contacted the company and got samples of this. So it's one of the studies we have conducted. So the first thing we did was to look for the right location, and we use baits, and I'm not going into this because it's already been discussed earlier. So we use both the carrot bait and the pot baits for wireworm. And the first trial I'm going to discuss with you is the use of the insecticide blend. I call it the AFC blend, insecticide blend, or maybe Bob Vernon's blend, because the treated seed came from him. And at this point, I would like to acknowledge Steve Moorhead, who actually initiated this study. And he was actually the one who contacted Bob for this study. So we had two sets of trials for this wheat treated seed. In 2011, we planted the treated seed at Canoe Cove, and the second one was planted in New Dominion. Both are Hans field, which have very bad history of wireworm. And in 2012 and 2013, we planted potatoes. This is how the trial looked at. It was replicated 4 times. Actually, this layout came from Bob. Just to show you the Pearly Show layout here. This is the New Dominion trial. So this is just to show you the field after planting. That was in 2010. So a few weeks after the germinating wheat and just before harvest. So from this field, in the following year, we planted potatoes, and we did not plant potatoes. Hans planted the potatoes, Russet Burbank, and so this is just a part of his bigger field. So what we did after he planted, we went back and hand planted our trial. Now, we harvested the potatoes and followed the usual protocol that Christine is using. Actually, we got the protocol from her. So we got the harvest, graded out the small ones, the less than 2 inches, and then evaluated the tuber one at a time, looking at counting the number of holes as well as looking at the severity of the hole. And how did we evaluate for the severity? That is peeling the skin and the potatoes until you get to a point where the hole is not there anymore. And then any tuber that, the peel, anything that has more than 5% of the total weight of the tuber is placed in the bin, which is considered unmarketable. This is very important because what I'm going to show you in the result are the amount of the unmarketable tubers. Okay, let's look at the result in 2012. Sorry. This is the result in the dairy farm field. I'm not going to to talk so much on the total yield, thank you, Brian, for most of the trials, but let's look at the total percentage with wireworm damage. Comparing the treated versus untreated, the significance, it's not statistically significant, but you could see some difference there where the treated seeds have lesser percentage of wireworm damage and lower number of holes. This is the result in the other location. We call it the Pearly Show field. And the same trend you can see here, where the treated seeds had lower percentage of wireworm damage and lower average number of holes. And at that time, the harvest from that field, we got a lot of small tubers. So I told William and Jesse, maybe we should also look at these small tubers, because if these small tubers would have been given enough time, they would have, enough tuber bulking and would have been a big tubers, just to get an idea of the extent of the damage. So this column here would show you the percentage of smalls with holes. So, and this is the percentage of small without holes. Now, beside our trial, Hans planted a used Titan. So we decided to do some 10-foot strip sampling from his field from that part of the field, treated with Titan. And this is, I know it's not an ideal or fair comparison, but this is just to give us an idea. So we see here that the Titan-treated seed tubers was not significantly different with the treated wheat seeds. Now, in 2012, that's when we started evaluating dazitol as well. We were looking at this product not only for wireworms, but also for other diseases like verticillium wilt. So we said, there's no harm in trying this product. So we added another trial in that field. And as I've said, this product came from Engage Agro. But just a brief background on this one. Dazitol contains the allyl isothiocyanate that Christine was talking about earlier, in combination with an actives from pepper, which is called capsaicin. And supposedly it claimed to control some soil-borne diseases. Actually, if you look at the literature, it's more on nematodes that this product would control, and other diseases like soil-borne diseases like fusarium and rhizoctonia. Anyways, we did a small plot trial here beside the wheat-treated fields, and you will see in this slide that the potatoes here are much smaller than the wheat-treated rows here. That's because we have to treat the rows 2 weeks in advance. So we did an in-furrow treatment, and then 2 weeks after we went back and planted the potatoes. So it was growing later compared to the other trial we did with the wheat. So that's the field during the vegetative stage. This is the wheat treated, and this is the dazitol trial. So looking at the result, by the way, we played around with the rate. So we did one application and two application. And in terms of total percentage of wireworm damage, we're seeing here a lower percentage damage, which was statistically significant controlled to the control. But in terms of the average number of holes, we didn't see a big difference. So as I've mentioned, we had another set of trial using the same insecticide blend. And in addition, in 2012, we also look at crop rotation, these crops, buckwheat and mustard, because as I've said, I got information from Christine. And so we set up a trial on this. So in 2012, we had the second trial on wheat. We had the second trial on dazitol. And we added a new product, the Must Grow. Now this is a dry granular soil fumigant, supposedly for the use to be used as a soil treatment. And the label claims that this will control other soil-borne diseases. But in the label, it says it's intended to use as part of an integrated pest management. So you don't expect a very 100% control, but it could reduce the population of wireworms. So we look at this product. So this is, if you look at the upper right portion of the slide, this is the granules. So mustard, it's supposed to be a mustard meal, concentrated mustard meal. And the application, there's a downside for this product. This is the recommended application rate, and if you give a value, it's really a very expensive product to use. But for the sake of research, we did it. We got a free product from the company. This product, I suppose, is used by organic growers or the home gardeners. Anyway, it's part of research. You have to look at all the possibilities. So that's how the the studies we did in 2012. So you have there the untreated wheat. We have the buckwheat here. And we look at two varieties of mustard, by the way. These are two different varieties from what Christine had used, but I'm going to discuss why we selected that in a little while. So this is the wheat planting in 2012. That's how the wheat looks like. Another picture of the wheat. And as I've said, we use two different varieties, and it's called Caliente 199 and Nimat Caliente 199. Why did we use this one? As Christine has mentioned, mustard have different, they come in different varieties, and this particular variety, the Caliente 199, because I reviewed some literature, and it turned out that this variety has been used to control soil-borne diseases, particularly for rhizoctonia and fusarium. And there's a number of studies conducted in Maine by Bob Larkin using this for several years, using this Caliente 199. And so we settled for these two varieties on the premise that we are targeting not only wireworm, but the other diseases as well. Now, the Caliente 199 is if you Google it, you will see that most of the reports, or even the ads you would see, emphasize that it should be used or considered as a biofumigant. And just to define biofumigation, this is incorporation of soil amendment as fresh plant mass into the soil, which will release chemical substances that are able to control the soil-borne diseases. So this is how our field looked like before it was disc. This one after few days after sowing, few weeks. This is before it was disc. Now we also look at buckwheat side by side with the mustard, and buckwheat is used as a green manure crop because of its decent yield of dry matter, and it grows at a shorter time. And if you look at literature, it's also considered as its mother crop for controlling weeds because it grows rapidly and germinates rapidly, and it has very broad leaves, so you get a lot of biomass there. So this is how our trials look like. That was in 2012. So that's the wheat field there, the mustard, and the buckwheat right there. Okay. In 2010, we planted potatoes in the same location where we had those different crops planted. So this is how it looks like. Now, it's nice because Hans planted several crops in that same field that is very bad with wireworm. So on the previous year before planting potatoes, on this side, he planted barley. So we planted buckwheat and mustard here, and this is where we planted the wheat. And this part here is where the dacitol and mass grow trial that we have conducted. Now also, Hans planted soybeans the year before, where he used Thymet. So we have a lot of information. We were happy that he did that. Anyway, this is just to show you a simple study done by Jesse. Because mass grow and dacitol, on the label, you have to plant it like 2 weeks before. So we were wondering if there's an adverse effect on the germination of potatoes. So what Jesse did is to just plant one row. Treat the applied mass grow in one row and then plant right away without waiting for 2 weeks. And true enough, there's a problem with germination here, but not for the dacitol. He used both products. Now let's look at the comparison of the treated versus untreated wheat seeds. We did not see any significant difference between the treated and the untreated here. So, sorry. But, okay, by the way, this is hundredweight. These are not percentage compared to the other data I've shown you earlier. But we can see here that the total number of holes in the treated is lower compared to the untreated. The number of holes is more or less, the average number of holes per tuber is more or less the same. But it looks like from Bob Vernon's presentation, this blend will not be registered, right, Bob? The blend that we use here, I think, is it has fipronil in it. Correct. Yeah. So, anyways, we have to wait for the next blend that has to be that will come out from his research. Now, comparing barley with these new products, the Musgrow and Dacetol, this is what we got. Oops, sorry. Now, there's a significant reduction for the percentage of marketable. So these two columns here are showing you the percentage marketable and percentage non-marketable, meaning both are marketable according to the size and grade, but these are the ones where the tubers had holes that did not less than 5% peel was removed. So it was still considered as marketable. So it's the depth of the hole that was being evaluated. So anything, if the depth of the hole is shallow, more likely it could still be processed. And I think Christine developed this protocol based on Cavendish Farms grading system as well. Also, if you look at the total number of holes, Dacetol would have the lowest number, and in terms of the average number per tuber, Musgrow is showing compared to barley. Now, what about the green manure crops? So, if we compare this to barley, in terms of percentage damage, wireworm damage here, in this column, buckwheat is giving 29%. Sorry. Mustard is giving 33%, and the mustard caliente combination of caliente and Nima is 41%. By the way, caliente 199 plus Nima is a mixture of seeds, two species actually. Nima would be it's Arugula species, and it's supposed to be a nematode attractant that would that would draw nematode up to the soil, and they claim that it could also attract wireworm to the upper portion. So, anyways, that's why we look at that as well. So, in terms of total and average number compared to barley, we reconfirm our result concur with what Christine and other reports have reported earlier. Now, just for the sake of comparison, I put up this table, which is showing you all the treatments that we had in 2013 in that field, and I'm showing here below at the bottom. You would see the figures that we got from soybeans and Thimet. It's just to reconfirm that Thimet still works compared with the other treatments, and you would see here too. In terms of marketable with damage, the Musgrow and Dacetol, the buckwheat and caliente, compared with barley and the untreated wheat, there is a significant reduction. Percentage marketable damage is lower in those treatments. Total number of holes is the same. Oh, the reason why I put this asterisk for Musgrow and Dacetol there is because these were planted 2 weeks later. and separated soybeans and thimet. By the way, all the rest are russet Burbank, but the part where soybeans was planted, hands planted a round white variety. It's a fresh market variety. So anyway, I just put up all those figures for the sake of comparison, but really it's not in the ideal research. It's not an ideal. It's not fair to compare this one here. So in summary, we have seen in our trials and even in the earlier presentations that some products have the potential, but these are either not registered or we need further research to reconfirm our figures or our result. Now, crop rotation using mustard and buckwheat as green manure have certain degree of control, but the best management practices we still have to refine. There's a lot of questions. Should we plant one cropping of mustard or 2 cropping? Should we plant in the spring or maybe in the middle to target the fall period where when the wireworms go up in the soil? So there's a lot of questions that needs to be answered yet. And that would be one of the focus of the trials probably that we will be conducting. Now, very quickly, so what do we have now? We need the control now. Let me just go forward here. We need an effective and sustainable control measures now. And my recommendation is to look at what are available in the basket, available control, and use them as following the integrated pest management approach, meaning not looking at one specific control, but combining the different available control. And that's why I have added a couple of slides here on green manuring, using buckwheat and mustard seem to be one of the best options we have now. And I would like to emphasize that using buckwheat and green manure as green manure, and there are advantages of using them as green manure, improving soil properties, fertility, structure, and the holding capacity, and it will also increase the biodiversity in your soil. In other words, you are not only targeting wireworm control, but it improves your soil property in general. Now, going back to mustard, there was a question earlier about incorporation of the mustard or treating it as biofumigant. If you look at previous studies, yeah, there were studies where mustard was just planted but not used as green manure. But in Europe, I think using mustard as green manure is becoming popular. Now, and there's one key element of using this as a green manure that has been emphasized in a lot of reports or literature, and that is to cut and crush the biomass properly, incorporating it right away. In fact, some literature would say to treat it like a fumigant, doing a fumigation, a chemical fumigation, where you have to cut and then incorporate it into the soil right away to get the optimum gas, the isothiocyanate from the biomass. Some report would say you have to do it within 2 hours. But yesterday I was reviewing some literatures again, and one study was saying that you have to incorporate it within 20 minutes from cutting, because the gas from those tissue would evaporate. So anyway, as I've said, there's still some studies that need to be done. But the main principle here, when we use mustard as a biofumigant, is as Christine has mentioned, the actives that is responsible for the control of wireworm and other soil-borne diseases in mustard is glucosinolates. And this actives has to interact with water. It has to be hydrolyzed and combined with an enzyme called the myrosinase enzyme to produce the ITC product, which is the actives that actually control wireworm and the other soil-borne diseases. So some even suggest that you have to irrigate after chopping and incorporation to trap. Some even suggest you have to roll the soil. And some in a smaller, in a home garden case reports, they even cover it with plastic, just like the fumigation, when they do the chemical fumigation. Because we want the isothiocyanate to be incorporated into the soil and take care of the target pest. So anyway, I'm going to talk more about this in our research forum come April 4. Now, I'm emphasizing the IPM approach, integrated pest management approach. And what are the components that we have on hand for the IPM? Proper cultural management practices in terms of crop rotation, proper tillage, sanitation, control of volunteers, minimizing soil movement. I really like what Ted said earlier in his presentation, where small things that we take for granted, sometimes, if put together, could have a significant effect. So all these things like sanitation, minimizing soil movement, right variety. I wish I could tell you there's resistant variety is one of the components of IPM, but there are some resistant varieties, but the resistance was found to be location specific. That's because it depends on the wireworm species present in that location. But as far as processing type potatoes are concerned, there's no resistant variety that we could use now. In a study done by the potato breeder in Idaho, Rich Novi, he screened some of his breeding materials, and he found out that wireworm resistance is correlated with the total glycoalkaloid in the variety. And in the breeding program, they usually select varieties with very low glycoalkaloid. So most of our commercial varieties have low glycoalkaloid. But I think in fresh market type potatoes, there are a few varieties that are considered resistant to wireworm. But again, I said it is location specific. So the last message is to practice the IPM, use whatever control measures that are available, because we have seen how important and how destructive this pest is. We will continue doing some research, and one of the plan is for the Cavendish Agri Group to come up with a long-term research trial for wireworm, incorporating some of the control measures. For our contracted growers, mark your calendar. We'll have our research forum on April 4. I hope it will not change. So thank you so much.
Any questions for Zenaida? Christine has a quick question.
I just have a quick question, Zenaida. Those crops were just, you didn't incorporate the crops, right? When the crops that you grew, the mustard and the buckwheat, did you incorporate them?
Has this,
They were
were
incorporated.
disc in, yes.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, every day we're learning new things. Like I've said, when we were doing that, when we did that mustard and buckwheat trial with Hans, I guess we were not very, we didn't have that information yet about disking it right away. So we have to do it again.
Zenaida, in the absence of equipment to do all this, if I understand you correctly, the mustard needs to be fractured or shredded and then incorporated into the soil immediately and rolled to seal it in to treat it like a fumigant. Are you recommending after it's shredded to moldboard plow it or to disc it before you roll it? Or is it important that all of that green be out of sight before we consider it well incorporated?
Actually, if you Google this mustard being used as a green manure, you would see that they use different equipment to do this, but the main principle is to crush and cut them finely as possible and incorporate them into the soil as soon as possible. And the presence, as I've shown you the reaction, there has to be moisture for the glucosinolate to interact with the enzyme to produce the isothiocyanate.
So disking instead of plowing, because disking would cut
Yeah,
up
disking. Disking compared with the plowing, disking would be better because it will cut and master. But you will see that some of the growers using this, they came up with different equipment. Like they have an equipment that cuts and then incorporate them at the same time.
See something right here on the screen now.
Oh, there you go.
With the mower and the incorporator.
Yeah. So.
Any other questions?
I just threw up a picture of what something similar to what Zenaida was talking about that a grower from the room sent me there last week. It's a piece of equipment they use in Europe, which actually has the flail mower in front and then has a spader in right behind the tractor and then actually rolls it right behind. So Josh Dillman and I had a long conversation on the soil conservation of this being done in the fall. But anyways, this is just one piece of equipment that was brought to our attention. We may look at trying to get something here in PEI to do some work.
And during our spring forum, I'll probably talk about mustard in relation to early dying control as well.